Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to our /PettyRevenge, where in today's episode, people are getting little wins against the ones who've wronged them. And in today's episode, it's all about airplane Karens getting taught lessons. And one OP tells a story about a territory war between her and this nasty old woman on the flight. Guys, the stories are so satisfying in this one. So sit back, relax, and seriously, try not to smile too hard at some of these posts. So this is actually my dad's story, and it happened in the 80s. My dad used to travel frequently for work. On one trip, he boards his flight, placed his briefcase in the overhead compartment, and took his seat while the rest of the passengers boarded and got settled. While he was sitting there, this guy who I'll call entitled a-hole came to my dad's row. He pulls my dad's briefcase out of the overhead bin and then asks my dad if it was his. Of course, my dad says yes, and he accepted it when the guy hands it to him, thinking that this guy was gonna make some room for his own carry-on and then put my dad's briefcase back. Instead, this entitled a-hole puts his carry-on in the overhead, leaving no room for anything else. He then looks at my dad, points a finger at him, and then says, "That thing can go under the seat in front of you." The guy then walks back to his seat near the front of the plane and sat down. Rather than causing a scene, my dad just removes the guy's carry-on from the overhead, put his own briefcase back, and then hit the flight attendant call button. When the flight attendant comes by to check on him, he asks to gate check his carry-on. And for those unaware, gate-checked items are put down in the cargo hold with the rest of the checked baggage, and it needs to be retrieved at baggage claim. Dad then puts the gate check ticket in the seat pocket in front of him and enjoyed his whole flight. He had deplaned by the time the entitled a-hole came back to get his carry-on and realized it was missing. I'm sure the guy found it eventually. Guys, what a savage move that was, right? And in my opinion, totally deserved. But yeah, I'm sure things were much more lax in the 80s compared to now because I can't see that working this smoothly nowadays. But I'm also not sure. That said, if it is the same nowadays and it's as easy as saying, "Oh, this is my bag, please have it checked for me," I'm keeping this one in my arsenal of petty revenges just in case I need to use it one day. So I'm someone who struggles with being overly kind and accommodating, especially on planes. I'm a small person, and people usually assumes that means they can encroach upon my space on planes instead of just upgrading themselves to a more accommodating seat. So this one flight, I was finally fed up, and I knew I no longer wanted to sacrifice my sustainability and comfort for selfish, undeserving humans. Here's what happened. I have the window seat, and someone who's boarded quite late comes in, pushing her oversized carry-on, winter coat, purse, and a shaggy blanket onto me. She didn't push her carry-on under her seat because it couldn't fit. This woman throws the shaggy blanket onto my seat while I'm sitting there. She places her purse right on my feet. After that, she places her headphones on and closes her eyes as if I'm invisible or something. I move the blanket and purse back to her side. This is when the flight attendant comes around and tells her about her luggage. She ignores. They assume she can't hear them. She continues to ignore. They then tap her shoulder and she continues ignoring. They have to shake her shoulder and finally, she follows their instructions. But before you know it, her coat, blanket, and purse are on my side again. She's fast asleep, elbows flung, having sweet dreams. I'm doing my best to move her things. Right about now, her mouth is open and she has terrible nighttime breath. Cool. When we're about to land, she's wide awake and she's on her phone. She puts her gross blanket back on me so she has more room, and finally, I get assertive. I push her blanket onto her and she yanks her blanket as if I'm in the wrong for not wanting her things all over me in my space. Not long after, the plane lands, and she gets up aggressively and she gives me a dirty look. When the doors open, she charges off the plane with a foul attitude, except she forgot to grab her purse. Now normally, I would have said something like, "Oh, hey, looks like you forgot something." But it's not my job to help nasty, entitled individuals. I'm thinking the flight attendants surely will catch her before she leaves the gate. But no, I see her walking through the food court and through the ground transportation doors. I wonder how far she'll get without her purse. Now that is instant karma at its finest, guys, and I just don't get how some people are that inconsiderate of others around them. And I think we can agree that sitting next to that Karen would have been insufferable, and her forgetting her purse, that's the least that could have happened. And this person shares a comment and they say, I would have shoved that purse under the seat on a different row to make it doubly hard to find if she came back. And this person says, a purse on my foot? I know you want me to use it as a footrest, which will then get shoved far under the seat behind me when I'm done using it. And if you thought that karma was satisfying, this comment says, we got to witness similar karma on a flight. We had just landed, and of course, people had to stand up and start crowding the aisle immediately. This guy across from us just starts pushing his way forward saying, well, if we don't get up, everyone behind us is gonna cut in front of us, while doing that exact thing. Well, as we deboard the plane, the guy was stuck waiting at the door because he'd forgotten his cell phone in his seat pocket. So the guy had to wait for everyone to get off before he could go back on and get his phone. So this took place not long ago. We were on a long international flight and my girlfriend was gonna have the window seat and myself the middle seat. When we got to our seats though, there was an a-hole sitting in the window seat. I asked if he could check his ticket and he moved to the aisle seat begrudgingly with a dramatic effort to move his bag from under the seat. When the flight attendants came past, she asked him to move his bag to the overhead because it doesn't fit under the seat properly. I took the benefit of the doubt when his bag hits me in the head, twice. The guy tried to shove his bag in the space that was left in the overhead, and a bunch of stuff falls out of one of the pockets. Some things landed on me and his seat, mostly paper and wrappers. As I move them off of me and I add them to the pile, he snaps at me saying, "Don't you touch my effing stuff." So needless to say, it wasn't the best start to a flight, especially knowing that we were stuck together for 10 hours. Nothing to deserve petty revenge yet though, but I just wanted to give you an idea of what this a-hole was like. Well, we were a few hours in and my girlfriend's fast asleep. I'm watching movies and dinner service is about to start. Now, my girlfriend's unlucky to be lactose intolerant. It's not bad, but she'll need the toilet a lot after eating milk products. On flights though, this means she gets her food before everyone else. Another thing, my girlfriend and I have an agreement to not wake the other up for food on these flights, as sleep is better than food. The flight attendant delivers the food and I accept it for her, and then ask the a-hole if he minds letting me out to use the toilet. The guy's clearly annoyed by this. I normally find this is perfect timing because once the full trolley service starts, getting to the toilet or back to your seat is a pain, and the lineup for the toilets is always short just before food service. I leave my girlfriend's food on my tray for her if she wakes up and then go to the toilet. I'm gone for a couple of minutes, and when I get back, I can't believe what I see. This a-hole is filling his mouth with my girlfriend's food. Of course, I speak up and say, "Hey, what are you doing? That's her food." And the a-hole replies, "Well, she wasn't eating it. Look at her, she's sleeping." I respond to that and say, "She didn't eat it because she's sleeping." Right about now, my girlfriend wakes up and people start looking. I can't blame them as it's in-flight entertainment. I would look too. My girlfriend asked, "What's going on?" And I respond and say, "This idiot is eating your food." There was then a bunch of name-calling from both sides, and a few people around us chime in too. A flight attendant rushes over and was able to calm everyone down. She makes the a-hole get up so I can sit back down. My girlfriend then asked the flight attendant to check if there's any options that she can have, and that may contain or processed in a facility with milk is fine. The a-hole looks like he's enjoyed my girlfriend's meal, and the flight attendant offers my girlfriend the chicken, which comes with a dessert that may contain milk. Time for the petty revenge. The moment my food hits my tray, my girlfriend looks at me. She grabs the cheese packet and she ate it with the biggest smile on her face. We both knew exactly what she was planning. 20 minutes later, she's asking me and the a-hole to get up. She comes back, and 10 minutes later, she asks us to get up again. She comes back and repeat the process again. Eventually, the a-hole snaps and says, "What the hell is wrong with you? I'm not getting up again." This guy starts losing his mind, so my girlfriend asked if they could swap seats. The guy seems to have forgotten our first interaction, where he didn't want to give up his stolen window seat. He refuses to swap with my girlfriend, and he tells her F off. The a-hole's living up to his name, and he continues to refuse to move. People are telling him to get up, and the flight attendant comes over. Just so happens to be the same one from earlier. We explain the situation, and my girlfriend bluffs and says it must have been the dessert, forgetting to mention the cheese she stole from me. The flight attendant offers to move the a-hole, and he accepts with a grin on his face, thinking that it's gonna be an upgrade or something. My girlfriend then goes to the toilet, and I enjoy some extra legroom. When my girlfriend gets back, she looks a bit too happy. She goes on to explain that when she came out of the toilet, she saw the a-hole again. The guy was sitting in the aisle seat right next to the toilet. I hope he thought that eating my girlfriend's dinner was worth the annoying toilet light, the flushing, the smell, and people constantly standing in line next to you. Again, doing something like eating someone's food while they're sleeping and having the audacity to be an a-hole about it, that's the least that could have happened to him. Like, who raised you, sir? But yeah, OP's girlfriend is a champ in this one because putting yourself through stomach cramps and toilet problems to spite someone, that deserves mega props. Well frickin' done. And what's petty revenge without some flatulence, guys? This next OP teaches a Karen a lesson she'll never forget. So this happened many years ago. I was flying Southwest and there's no assigned seats. I was in B boarding group. I went towards the back of the plane so I could get an aisle seat since I'm fairly tall. It was a completely full flight, so I knew there would be someone sitting right next to me. Enter entitled Karen. This woman had waited to check in, so she was at the back of the C boarding group. She was pissy at first because she couldn't find anywhere to put her massive roller bag, and the flight attendants were trying to get her to gate check it. She then comes up to my row, and I thought, great, she's gonna take the middle seat. But no, and this is the following dialogue that occurred. Karen says to me, "Move." I respond, "What?" She then says, "I paid for an aisle seat and you're sitting in my seat." Being more confused, I say, "What?" She's practically screaming at this point, saying, "I said I paid for an aisle seat and you're sitting in my seat." I then tell her, "Ma'am, this is Southwest, there's no assigned seats." She then calls me stupid and she says I need the aisle seat. So I respond, "I can get up to give you the middle seat if you want." I stupidly thought that was the end of it when a flight attendant comes over and asked her to take a seat. I got up to let her into the row and she immediately sits down in the aisle seat. And she says to me, "You sit in the middle." I of course tried to protest to the flight attendant, but Karen kept loudly saying that she paid for an aisle seat. Our flight was already delayed 30 minutes, and I could see all the other passengers looking at me, as if trying to say, please let her win. We want to get out of here as fast as we can. I look at the flight attendant, and she gave me a pleading look, as if also to say, please just give her this seat. We want to get out of here. So being the fairly passive person I am, I stepped over Karen, as she wouldn't get up to let me in, and I sat in the middle seat. Now, I may be passive, but I'm also petty. I'm also a really gassy person. Normally, I try to contain it and go to the restroom when it gets bad enough, and I would just let it rip in there. But I was pissed at Karen, and frankly, I was quite pissed at everyone else on the plane for letting her get away with it. So I decided that I was just gonna let her rip all 7 hours of the flight. I just put my headphones on and closed my eyes, and I start passing gas about an hour into the flight. And lucky for me, it was particularly stinky. Every time I let one go, Karen would sniff, smell it, and then shoot dirty looks at me. I just ignored her, and I kept listening to my music and reading my Kindle. At about hour 5, she had enough, and she hit the call button asking me to move. The flight attendant told her we were fully booked and there was nowhere to move me to. Karen looked even more pissed, but I guess she had seen enough of the internet to know that if she threw a fit, she would get arrested when we landed. When we did land, and since we were near the back, I gave it one more silent but deadly toot to seal the deal, and I let her bathe in my stink for a couple of more minutes. Now, do I feel bad that I ruined her flight? No. Do I feel bad that I stank up my whole row? Also, no. For the first time ever, I didn't have any gas pains, nor did I need to rush to the bathroom immediately after getting off my flight. Next time, check in early like the rest of us people, and maybe you'll get a less salty seatmate, Karen. Talk about one Karen ruining it for everyone, right? And for Karen to call the flight attendant to try to make OP move, oh my goodness, the nerve. And this person says, the only thing I would do differently is when she looked at me, instead of ignoring her, I would have looked right back at her with a big grin on my face. And while we're on the topic of flatulence, guys, oh boy, this next flight attendant fights back against a snobby Karen. Listen to this post. So this one does get a little gross. I'm a flight attendant for a premier US carrier, and this past Wednesday, I was working a flight from New Orleans to New York City. We were stationed in New Orleans overnight on Tuesday, so I had 2 of my friends come meet me from Denver, where I'm based out of, and we had a lot of fun. Come the next morning, I'm not feeling so great. The hangover continues well into the afternoon, to the point that I'm almost running late for my pre-board because I can't get off the toilet. Anyways, we get to boarding, and this passenger keeps complaining that she was supposed to get a first-class upgrade, but there wasn't one available, so she wanted us to move her to a different flight that had one, which isn't something we can do. She's being overall unpleasant about the whole thing, and in general, she reeks of your typical stuck-up Long Island girl. You know the type, or maybe you're lucky enough not to. Her unpleasantness continues through boarding, at which point I see her being extremely rude to the people in her row. She basically bullies them into giving her the aisle seat, even though she paid for an economy ticket, which in my airline almost guarantees you get a middle seat. And then, the final straw. We're preparing for takeoff and she's not in her seat. She's in the bathroom, doing God knows what, and she's making the whole airplane wait because we can't take off until everyone's seated. Cue my petty revenge. I decide to give her the stinkiest, smelliest flight of her life. I continuously crop dusted this woman for the next 3 hours. I basically fart on her almost every single time I made my rounds through the cabin. I must have gassed her 7 or 8 times before we landed. I caught her wincing, complaining, pinching her nose, and wafting the air around her. It was a complete success each time. And here are some highlights. Number 1, these were some of the absolute worst farts I've ever had in my entire life, like room-clearing, vomit-inducing stinkers. Number 2, the 3rd time I gave her one, I was bent over assisting the passengers across the aisle, and I could practically feel the side of this woman's leg on my butt. So I guarantee that she could feel my fart on her leg. And lastly, while most of these were the silent but deadly variety, the last one was actually a bit of a rumbler at the end, and I know she heard it and she had to have known that she had just been farted on. So yeah, if you're a stuck-up brat flying coach, you'd better be kind to the staff and fellow passengers, otherwise you may end up on the wrong end of some smelly justice. When this happened, I boarded my 14-hour flight and I settled down in my seat, which was 62H. There were 4 seats in the middle of the plane, 62E, F, G, and H. My 62H is the aisle seat on the right. On my left, in 62E and F, sat a mother in her 50s and a son who was about college age. Between me and the mother, there was a 62G, which was empty. As boarding's coming to an end, in a rare chirpy mood, I lean over and I said to the woman, "I hope this person doesn't come so we both have more elbow room." There was no response while she fluffed the synthetic pillow in the empty seat. I thought nothing of it. As soon as boarding complete was announced, to my surprise, this woman moved to the empty seat next to me, effectively moving the elbow room from between us to between her and her son. The next thing I know, she was pulling the upright armrest divider between us down. I was surprised, and I said to her, "Why? There's more space for both of us with it up." She obliged in silence, and the armrest stayed up. Still, I couldn't decide how upset I should be though. The flight takes off, and the seatbelt sign came off. I reached for my shoes under the seat in front of me, and imagined my outrage when my foot felt her foot in my area. And I thought to myself, "Oh, woman, I see you woke up today and you chose violence." I make one more attempt of diplomacy, and I say to her, "Hey, your foot's in the way." My underlying message was, "Aren't you ashamed of behaving the way you are as an elder?" The woman pretends she doesn't hear me, and I thought, this is war. Next, I did what any red-blooded person would do. I complained to multiple flight attendants, and one went to talk to her while I waited from not too far away. With that woman sitting steadily in the seat, I knew no justice was upheld. The flight attendant reports back apologetically and says that passenger says she has to sit there because there's something on her anus. Now, I failed to see the correlation between an empty seat and a hemorrhoid, but the impartial judge was ineffective. I thank the flight attendants, and plural because one also intervened and then sat back down. At this point, I knew this street problem needed a street solution. You can't reason with someone who's willing to share some butt problem just to win. My attempt earlier to shame her felt laughable, so I thought I'll just put my legs up on the seat when she gets up to go to the bathroom. I thought easy, but no. For the next 12 hours, and I repeat, 12 hours, this woman did not drink water, did not lift up ever so slightly from her seat, nothing. She knew the consequences of getting up. She had done this before, and this was not her first territorial war. I should also add that she sounded perfectly normal talking to her son. She was a caring and pleasant mother. Early on, I hear the son say, "Mom, why don't you move back over?" And she went, No, don't worry about it." She said that all chirpy, like my mood, before she ruined it. I tried everything to tempt her too. I got up to use the bathroom liberally, basically saying to her, "Look at this freedom that you too could have." I start drinking water with 2 cups. At one point, I start transferring water from one cup to the other, basically saying to her, "Listen to this trickling water sound." But that didn't work. While she was sound asleep, I turned on my overhead light. The bright beam just so happened to be slightly off-centered to her side. Waking her up felt good, but seriously, what was her bladder made of? Whatever it's made of wasn't turbulence-proof. After 15 minutes of genuinely terrifying turbulence, which probably led a much-needed reassessment about her life choices, she got up and she headed to the restroom when the plane steadied. That's when I put my legs up across the newly freed seat. The son just watches me from the other end of the row, next to the seat full of pillows, blankets, and other accessories they got to accumulate. He said nothing. The woman returns not too long after, and having seen me sitting across 2 seats, to my amazement, this woman sits down right on top of my legs while saying to me, "This is my seat. I need to sit in my seat." I just thought to myself, this can't be happening. With the unexpected butt-to-leg contact, I collected myself and I said to her, "Shame on you, woman. You've been using this public seat for the past 12 hours. Don't you think it's fair for me to put my feet up?" Still making no eye contact, she jerks to retrieval and she starts arranging those pillows and blankets next to her son. She then says, "Fine, I'll make room for your feet, but just to let you know, I'm not even feeling well yet, and shame on you for forcing me to move just so you can put your smelly feet up." And this is when I let her have it. I say to her, "If your butt problem calls for 2 seats, you should have purchased 1 more. I'm afraid you didn't." As I kept talking, this woman turns bright red and she murmurs, "Stop, stop." And as my sentence finished, she shouts at me saying, "Stop talking." It was clear that she was really embarrassed. Everyone turns around to look at her, and I had to get one last petty jab in. I said to her, "Oh, you don't want everyone to know about your butt problem?" And somehow, I thought this was the funniest thing ever, and I start laughing. Sometimes, I do stop and wonder how she would have escalated had I kept talking. With my legs up on 62G, I had the best 2-hour nap of my life. I never saw them again after that flight. So this happened during my time living in Australia. If there's one true thing I've learned about traveling is do not annoy airport staff. They're the people who decide if you get to board or not, and being aggressive, rude, or confrontational to them will get you nowhere. I was at Sydney Airport, traveling to see family in New Zealand. I was going through bag check. In front of me, I could see this angry, red-faced businessman who seemed to be stressed and in a hurry. The security person, a tiny old Asian woman, was checking his luggage, and the businessman immediately became abusive. He starts screaming at her saying, "Why the hell are you looking at that? Get a bloody move on." The woman says to him, "Sir, I'm just doing my job. Your luggage was selected for a hand check, so you need to be patient." The businessman just keeps screaming, saying, "I have an international flight leaving in 10 minutes. Hurry up. I'm sick of this airport hiring these effing idiots." This is when a second security person comes and says, "Sir, you need to calm down. We're just doing our jobs." But instead of calming down, Mr. Businessman predictably became angrier and more belligerent towards the staff, and of course, starts dropping slurs. The guy starts screaming and says, "I travel through this airport frequently, and it gets worse every single time because you keep hiring these idiots. I'm sick of their damn incompetence. Learn to speak effing English." I also want to note, this old Asian woman spoke English fluently. He goes on to say, "I have a flight leaving in 10 minutes. I don't have time for this crap. Just give me my bag and let me leave. Why is that so effing hard?" Security now looked extremely fed up with this guy, but clearly they weren't done with him yet. I did notice that the staff member did her bag check slightly slower than normal. All the while, this man proceeds to throw a tantrum and acted like a spoiled child. At long last, he snatches his bag away and began to stomp off, only to be stopped for a body search. Immediately, the guy blows his top again. When I left to walk to my gate, the guy was still raging, and I very much doubt he made his flight. So the moral of the story is while traveling is stressful, it always helps to be patient with staff doing their jobs. Otherwise, you might not make your flight. I'm still baffled about why he was causing so much trouble when he had so little time to make his flight. Because some people seem to think that yelling at others to hurry will in fact make them hurry, that's why. And gotta love the fact that everyone got together to teach that guy a lesson, and hopefully with him missing his flight, he learned a lesson. So I have a short but funny story to share. I'm at the short-term parking at the airport looking for a space. I see a guy pulling out, so I stop and put on my blinker. The guy pulls out, but he blocks me while backing up. and here comes a guy in a shiny red Camaro with a trophy girlfriend in the passenger seat. He swoops into the space. So I pull up and I say, I was waiting for that space. He shrugs and says, sorry. I respond, well, if you're sorry, you can leave and give me the space I was clearly waiting for. The guy just rolls up his window, completely ignoring me. So I go off and park elsewhere on the floor. Then I walk back towards his car with my keys in my hand. Now, at that point, I had never keyed a car before, and his car was really nice, and you have to piss me off worse than that for me to do property damage, but still, I was gonna do something. I thought, maybe leave a nasty note, I don't know. I get to his car, and he's still inside talking to his girlfriend, and then I have my inspiration. I put a sweet smile on my face because he looks like a macho type. And I knock on the window. He lowers the window looking annoyed, and I say, you know, you have a really gorgeous car. The guy looks annoyed, but he thanks me, and he's about to put his window back up when I say, but wait, there's something I want you to think about while you're in the airport. He looks confused. And this is when I say to him, I know where your car is parked, and you don't know where my car is parked. The guy pulls out of the space and drives away, and just like that, my job here is done. What a perfect petty one-liner that was, guys, and I've said this before. The best petty revenges are the one-liners, where OP literally doesn't do a darn thing except plant the seed and let the other person's mind take care of it for them. Like, I only wish I was that witty. Like, I would have come up with that line 4 days later in the shower or something. And this person comments, I did something similar many years ago. It was a one-way street, and this older man was guarding a parking spot. When I put on my blinkers to park, he told me it's for his car coming down around the corner. I happened to circle back just as his car parked. I stopped in front of him, rolled down the windows, and he started to speak. I just stopped him and I say, just want to let you know that your car has such a nice paint job. Apparently, they decided not to park there after all. Again, some people are so brilliant when it comes to being petty. Save that one for the nasty Karen one day. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /petty revenge. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy, crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's an r/entitled People episode, where psycho Karens are running wild. And one OP tells a story about their nasty, nasty mother-in-law stalking them. It's such a wild episode, so go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.